Good morning. It's Friday, the 29th of August. You're tuned in to our 10 a.m. newscast coming to you from Arirang's news centre in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome. It's great to have you with us. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. North Korea cancels plans to send hundreds of cheerleaders to the upcoming Asian Games in South Korea. It says Seoul had expressed too many concerns. President Park Geun-hye will consider designating southern areas hit by torrential rains and flash flooding, including the city of Busan, as special disaster zones. Plus, the UN Security Council convenes an emergency meeting after images allegedly show Russian forces inside Ukraine helping pro-Moscow rebels fight government troops. But our top story this morning, in an about turn on its earlier decision, North Korea says it will not send a cheerleading squad to the upcoming Asian Games in South Korea. So it looks as though North Korean athletes will have to make do with the support of their coaches and their staff. Our Yulian starts us off.
Laying the blame at Seoul's feet for its concerns over the cheering team, the vice chairman of North Korea's National Olympic Committee officially announced on Thursday that Pyongyang was taking back its decision to send a cheerleading squad to the upcoming Asian Games.
The South expressed concern over our sending of the cheerleading squad, and they raised concerns, so we decided not to send them for the 17th Asian Games.
He added the committee's decision was conveyed to South Korea when the two sides met last week for working-level talks to discuss this very issue. This unexpected development comes after weeks of tense negotiations over Pyongyang's decision to send a 350-member cheerleading squad, which would have been more than twice the size of North Korea's contingent of athletes. While Pyongyang kept saying the move was to promote goodwill, the two Koreas have been at odds over who would have paid for the group during their stay in South Korea. Despite the move, North Korea says its athletes will participate in the Games. The latest turn of events goes against expectations of a more conciliatory attitude from North Korea, following the end of the joint military drills between South Korea and the United States this week.
In the short term, it's inevitable inter-Korean ties will get worse. But if the Koreas fail to improve relations, they will feel pressure from inside and outside of the country. So in the long run, there's a high chance the two will begin dialogue.
The South Korean government did not comment directly on North Korea's announcement, only confirming that it was informed. Officials added that they will continue to take all steps necessary to make sure the North Korean team can participate in the Asian Games, which kick off on September 19th in Incheon. Yurian, Arirang News.
South Korea and the United States have wrapped up their annual joint training drills one day ahead of schedule. The Combined Forces Command says the computer-simulated Ulchi Freedom Guardian exercises successfully met all of their training goals. It added the two allies were able to elevate their joint defense capabilities as well as their readiness alongside the UN partner states this year. Analysts anticipate the completion of the exercises, which North Korea considers a war game, could pave the way for rosier inter-Korean ties going forward. President Park Geun-hye has promised residents of Korea's southeast, recently hit very hard by torrential rain and flash flooding, that she will look into declaring the region a special disaster zone. The Korean leader traveled to Busan, which was one of the hardest hit areas. She went there on Thursday and ordered officials to come up with a new system to better respond to such natural disasters. And she also ordered an inspection of aging reservoirs, not only in that area, but across the country. She also called on the authorities to make sure affected residents return to their ordinary lives as soon as possible, so that they can enjoy next month's Chuseok holiday with their families. The father of one of the high school students killed in April's ferry disaster has ended, on his over 6-week-long hunger strike on Thursday. This was aimed at forcing lawmakers to set up a full, independent inquiry into that awfully tragic sinking. However, the battle over launching a special probe into the disaster rages on inside and outside Korea's National Assembly. Our Ji Myung-gil has this report.
A prominent relative of the victims of the ferry disaster ended his 46-day hunger strike, raising hopes of a breakthrough in a political deadlock that has paralyzed parliamentary proceedings in Korea for months. The fasting by Kim Young-ho, the father of one of 233 students killed in the April ferry sinking, has been the focal point of protests by victims' families demanding an independent investigation into the circumstances behind the disaster.
Although I decided to end the hunger strike, I will continue to protest until the special law is passed at the National Assembly. My goal is to build a country that is safe to live in. When I get better, I will go back to the Gwanghwamun Square.
The families want a committee in charge of the probe to be given investigative powers, but rival parties have been unable to come to terms on an agreement that satisfies all sides. The bereaved families say the end of Kim's hunger strike is not indicative of any progress being made in negotiations, and that their protests will continue. But the end of Kim's fasting is raising hopes that differences will be bridged. The ruling Saenuri Party is most optimistic. Ruling party leaders held a second round of talks with representatives of the victims' families on Wednesday and reported progress. Another meeting is scheduled for next Monday. The talks are taking place with a newfound sense of urgency. The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy has boycotted all parliamentary activities in protest at the ruling party's refusal to give bereaved family members a greater say in negotiations over a bill that would probe the causes of the ferry accident. The ruling and opposition parties have reached agreement on the legislation on 2 previous occasions, but both drafts were rejected by the Seoul ferry families. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Now, on a related note to that, Korea's Prime Minister is currently calling on the National Assembly to pass bills on stabilizing the livelihoods of the people, emphasizing that Korea needs to grasp this so-called golden time to haul its economy out of its long and protracted slump. Jung Hong-won is urging the prompt passage of bills focused on revitalizing the economy. As we just saw in Myung-gil's report, the political deadlock over the contested Seoul ferry bill aimed at uncovering the truth about the deadly accident has left a slew of economic bills in limbo at the National Assembly.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. Arirang News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers $15 billion. Now, economic news. And on the back of strong exports, Korea logged a current account surplus for the 29th straight month in July. That's almost 2.5 years straight now. And this comes even as imports rose sharply last month as well. Hwang Ji has this report.
Korea has posted a current account surplus every month for nearly 2.5 years now. The central bank says the nation logged a surplus of $7.91 billion last month. That's almost identical to the $7.92 billion surplus recorded in June and to the $7.9 billion surplus in the same month last year. Exports of products rose 1% from a year earlier to almost $54 billion on strong shipments of automobiles and steel products, while imports increased 3.5% to $47 billion. The Bank of Korea says, however, that the rise in imports does not necessarily indicate a pickup in domestic demand as it comes on the back of strong oil prices. Experts also warn on too much optimism.
The import volume still remains sluggish, but the rise in energy prices pulled up the total amount of imports. So the current account surplus is still largely coming from the slumping domestic demand.
The current account surplus during the January to July period now stands at over $47 billion, up 20% from the same period a year ago. The bank expects the Korean economy to easily reach its $84 billion current account surplus projection for all of this year, but adds that this month's surplus is likely to fall short of July's due to fewer working days. Hwang Ji, Arirang News.
The average lending rate at Korea's commercial banks has hit an all-time low, and this is mostly due to the continued fall in the household lending rate and mortgage loans. The Bank of Korea said on Thursday that the average rate for bank deposits came to 2.4% in July, the lowest since related statistics began being compiled in 1996. With the local economy not showing much sign of an improvement, the Bank of Korea cut the benchmark interest rate to 2.25% earlier this month. Experts say it probably won't be that long before interest rates fall into the 1% range. The housing market in Seoul is showing signs of picking up after some government regulations were eased earlier this month. Although it's traditionally an off month for home buying, really, here in Korea, the Seoul Housing Information Plaza says the number of housing transactions in the Korean capital is expected to surpass 6,200 in August, which would make it the highest since the housing bubble back in 2009. The regulation changes include easing measures that limit the amount of money that people can borrow from banks when buying a home. The loan-to-value and debt-to-income ratios, or the LTV and DTI ratios, as they're more commonly known, were raised to 70% and 60%, respectively. Now, good news for the country, because Korea has posted its largest ever earnings from tourism, and it did so last month on the growing number of Chinese visitors to the country. The Bank of Korea says that tourists spent around $1.6 billion in July. That is up almost 35% from the same month a year earlier. The number of Chinese tourists stood at 690,000 last month, accounting for more than half of all tourists to Korea during that period. This also helped Korea's travel account deficit for the month of July narrow to its lowest level in 13 years. Korea's state-run anti-corruption agency has started cracking down on the illegal trade of agricultural, livestock and fisheries products ahead of the Chuseok, or the Korean Thanksgiving holiday, which comes up in the second week of September. The Anti-Corruption and Civil Rights Commission says it will be closely looking into irregular cases such as false labeling of origin and even things like fake expiration dates, and they're going to do this until September 12th. Anyone who suspects a business of corrupt practices can inform the Commission through its website. The address you can see there on the screen, or by dialing 110 in Korea. Those providing information are eligible for some really rather handsome cash rewards, and their identities will also be kept anonymous. Now, just like a great many countries in the developed world at least, weddings can be a very expensive business here in Korea, but an increasing number of soon-to-be couples are deciding to keep things a lot simpler and are going for practicality and uniqueness over glitz and glamour. Our Connie Kim reports.
Skipping the conventional photo shoot and dropping the bride and groom gift exchange process is what these newlyweds did when preparing for their wedding back in May. They rented a small house in the city for their wedding and only invited close friends and family.
We didn't want to spend a lot on a typical wedding ceremony like others, so we decided to skip the expensive gift exchanges between families. Even our wedding rings were only $500.
All the money the couple saved will go to a second honeymoon. More pairs are choosing to cut down the frills, and it's no wonder because saying "I do" in Korea can be an extravagant affair. Check out the statistics for yourself. With an average $24,000 that a couple spends on preparing for marriage, about 1/5 is spent on hunsu, a wedding tradition. Hunsu consists of furniture and other household items a bride buys to fill her new home that has been purchased by the groom, and it's symbolic of old patriarchal traditions. With Korea's long-standing patriarchal society slowly fading and soon-to-be married couples looking for a special experience, one-of-a-kind wedding ceremonies are on the rise. And industry insiders back this up, saying an increasing number of couples these days are going against wedding norms.
In Korea, there's an increasing number of people who have lived abroad, and naturally they have become receptive to the different wedding cultures. I think it has contributed to the recent growing number of couples holding unique weddings.
Kim says requests for chapel weddings and house weddings have become more popular to tie the knot while making ends meet. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following this Friday morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, standing by at the news centre. Good morning, Eunice.
Hello, Mark.
Well, the crisis in Ukraine is reaching new depths, really, as Kiev now says that it's dealing with a full-scale invasion by Russian forces.
Right, and fighting now is on two fronts, it seems. One in eastern Ukraine centered on separatist-held Donetsk, as we've been talking about, and this newest one a little bit south of that in southeast Ukraine. And without calling it a full-scale invasion, U.S., UK, and NATO officials all said that their information does show that Russian forces have, in fact, entered Ukraine. In reaction, the United Nations Security Council expressed their outrage at Moscow. U.S. Ambassador Samantha Power accused Russia of manipulating and outright lying, while Russia's diplomat shot back and suggested Washington should stop interfering in Kiev's affairs. He did not, however, deny the presence of Russians in Ukraine. Earlier, the country's Defense and Security Council said Russian tanks and military vehicles had rolled in and taken a border town on the Azov Sea and other parts of southeast Ukraine, prompting President Petro Poroshenko to cancel a planned trip to Turkey. Now, the leader of the separatist group, the Donetsk People's Republic, told Russian TV that as many as 4,000 Russian soldiers were fighting alongside the rebels. The World Health Organization warns the Ebola outbreak could reach a scale never before anticipated, a scale of as many as 20,000 cases. The WHO said it currently has on record 1,552 Ebola-related deaths in Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Nigeria, but Assistant Director General Bruce Aylward said the actual number of cases could be 2 to 4 times higher than that currently reported in some areas. He underlined the need to establish a system that could deal with such robust numbers. Health workers on the ground have said the resources they have been greatly insufficient. The WHO is calling for some $490 million to be spent over the next 9 months, as well as 12,000 national workers and 750 international workers to combat the outbreak across West Africa. And turning our eyes to politics now, Turkey's former Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan has officially been sworn in as the country's first directly elected head of state. During the ceremony, the former 3-term Prime Minister promised to honor the Constitution and to protect Turkey's independence and integrity. Previously, he had promised to give more clout to the presidency, a previously ceremonial post drawing the ire of his critics. And could a new iPhone or 2 be on the horizon? Apple announced it will hold a special media event in the hometown of Cupertino, California on September 9th, with the details of the event addressed only in the cryptic words, "Wish we could say more." Rumors have been rife that the U.S. tech company would unveil 2 versions of its best-selling smartphones, one with a 4.7-inch screen and the other a 5.5-inch screen. Techies will also be watching for so-called sapphire display screens, reportedly more scratch-resistant, and also Apple's long-awaited smart watch.
And TGI Friday, everyone, as we kick things off with not the FIFA World Cup, but the FIBA World Cup, which is set to begin this weekend in Spain. And with 24 nations competing in the basketball tournament, Korea will be grouped into Group D. And while it's the first time in 20 years that Korea has qualified for the event, which was formerly known as the World Basketball Championship, they're not expected to survive the group stage as they're grouped with Angola, Australia, Lithuania, Mexico, and Slovenia. And while it'll be a tough task for the Korean national team, they hope to use the experience as a tune-up before the Incheon Asian Games. And now staying in basketball, NBA fans in Korea got a treat when Washington Wizards point guard John Wall visited Korea on Thursday and held a youth basketball clinic. With the special event taking place at Myeongji High School, several youth basketball players got a chance to learn a thing or two from one of the best point guards in the NBA. And while he was impressed with their skills, fans were impressed with his confidence when he said that he could beat LeBron James in a one-on-one game. And now moving over to football, where Son Heung-min of Bayer Leverkusen has been on a tear lately, scoring his third goal of the season and his second Champions League goal during the second leg of the Champions League playoffs. With Bayer Leverkusen facing off against FC Copenhagen in the second leg of the Champions League playoffs, Son Heung-min scores his second straight Champions League goal, helping his German club win 4-0. With the win, they advance to the Champions League group stages for the second straight year. And speaking of which, the UEFA Champions League group stage drawing took place earlier today, and while Son Heung-min's Bayer Leverkusen was drawn with Benfica, Zenit St. Petersburg, and Monaco, the most interesting group, well, Group E. And in the group are Bayern Munich, who won the 2013 Champions League final, Manchester City, CSKA Moscow, and AS Roma. And while Bayern Munich and Man City are expected to advance to the next round, Moscow and Roma have what it takes to pull an upset in the group as well. And now over to the Nanjing Youth Olympics, which came to an end on Thursday night. Now, Korea finished off with a rather impressive 5 gold, 7 silver, and 7 bronze medal after adding a late silver medal in football. And so with that, we're going to finish things off with some Thursday night KBO action. The Lotte Giants beat the Kia Tigers in a close game 6-5, with the SK Wyverns hanging on to beat the LG Twins 4-2, and the Nexen Heroes crushed the Hanwha Eagles 10-4. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the first place Samsung Lions take on the struggling Tusan Bears. And of course, going into the game, we go over to the bottom of the first inning. A wild pitch scores Min Byung-hun from third, and Tusan takes a 1-0 lead. Next play, Hon Sung-eun with a man on deep to left center. Gone, a 2-run shot, and the Tusan Bears take an early 3-0 lead. Ninth inning, Tusan up 6-3. Choi Tae-in with an RBI double cuts the deficit to 6-4 before Chae Young-woo makes it 6-5 with another RBI double to right center. With the tying run on second, Lee Seung-yup strikes out swinging, and the Tusan Bears hang on to win this one 6-5. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Rain in some of the southern coastal regions is continuing to drop some showers to these areas, and up to 60 millimeters of additional rain is in the forecast for the southern coastal areas, and the rest of down south will see 5 to 20 millimeters, and even here up north we'll see passing showers during the day from the late in the evening till late at night. But most of the time, skies should stay clear and temperatures will remain on the warm side. So let's take a closer look at today's temperatures. The afternoon high in the capital will rise to 29, while Daegu and Gwangju will peak at 27 and 28 respectively. Now for other regions, it looks like down on Jeju Island will peak at 24, and Daejeon and Dokdo will rise to 28 and 22 respectively. Now it seems like we're going to have a typical late summer-like weather over the weekend. Temperatures will stay in the 30s in the afternoon under partly to mostly sunny skies, but please do notice a big temperature difference between lows and highs, and take good care of your health. That's all for Korea, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now. Do enjoy the rest of your Friday, wherever you are watching us, and stay tuned to Arirang. We'll be back again for our next newscast at noon, Korea time. Until then, goodbye.